Welcome to the Fasting Podcast, Wow, Wellness and Optimal Weight. I'm your host, Julie Phillips, certified natural health professional, bringing you episode 123, Nutrisystem and Intermittent Fasting. Since I executed Nutrisystem over 30 years ago, the company has turned 50 years old, and I have some pleasant surprises about how it has changed. There's an enormous variety of foods developed over these past 50 years, so I picked to do my 1-month test foods with 4 and 5-star ratings, and most of it tasted good for being packaged foods, which I normally am not a fan of. There were life coaches, which were good, knowledgeable, and the program can be customized for each individual with lots of different options. I was impressed with how much good education is built in with articles, guides, newsletters. It was very educational oriented, and most of the education was good. And a month's supply of the fancy deluxe version of their program that included restaurant-style inspiration dinners was only $299, and that included 22 breakfasts, 22 lunches, dinners, snacks, which came to 88 foods for an average of $3.35 per meal or snack. Now, interestingly, online, the price was closer to $400, not $299, but when I called in and got a rep and I said that was too high, they must have marked my record, because when I called back in, I got a different person, and it was kind of like a retention department was the impression I had, even though they probably don't call it that. But she said, I noticed you called in before, and I'm authorized to give you a lower rate. So instead of like $389, it was $299, free shipping, and she would grandfather me in at that price ongoingly. Also, in my first call to them, I told them I didn't like having to do a mandatory auto ship second month, and the rep I had the second time said she could waive that, and I could only do it 1 month at the lower price with the free shipping and be grandfathered in at that price long term. So that was interesting that calling back was a key. The shipping was free, but when you see how heavy the non-freezer box, which comes earlier, the freezer box comes in a biodegradable cooler, styrofoam, but you can leave it for the trash people because it will biodegrade. These are super heavy, and the freezer portion came with dry ice, and everything was completely frozen. I was impressed. There were frozen ice cream sandwiches right near the top. Everything was frozen. I expected the shipping, if I had to pay for it, to be definitely over $50. So when it was free, it was a very pleasant surprise. And it did take about a week longer to get the frozen batch. I didn't start the program till I had everything. More pleasant surprises were that the volume of food I was mandatorily to eat was far more than it was 30 years ago. And that included a mandatory 4 cups of lower carb veggies, and yet I could have unlimited number of these lower carb veggies. And tomatoes, which I thought would probably be off the list, I could have unlimited, as well as carrots and the other more readily identifiable lower carb veggies. The amount of carbs was dramatically higher than I expected, so I was able to eat pizza, sweets, hash browns, desserts, and I could eat plenty of fruit or even whole grain bread. The amount of protein was dramatically higher than 30 years ago, and even the chicken and beef tasted fairly tender. The chocolate shake, they gave me free 7 shakes the first week, and I expected them to be terrible just mixed with water, but they were actually quite tasty. Starting after the first week, the program I was on was to include 2 flex breakfasts, 2 flex lunch, and 2 flex dinners, preferably eaten on different days of the week. So maybe Monday I would have a flex breakfast, Wednesday a flex lunch, etc. So that teaches people to eat real food, not the packaged food, from the very beginning, making it more sustainable, and teaching people how to eat up front, and also easily able to eat at a restaurant with someone. The amount of free food is the category, and the amount of extras as a category at 3 per day of these extras adds variety. So before I started the test, I went out and bought some of these extra things I would not normally have on hand. And I was happy that the plan required at least 64 ounces of water and 30 minutes of daily activity or exercise. And the app on the phone was great in keeping track of the water, the exercise, the food. It was really an outstanding tool. You have to wonder, how does it fit with intermittent fasting? Because that was part of my test. Well, I did the plan with an eating window that I was going to try to target of 6 or sometimes 8-hour eating window, giving my body 16 to 18 hours to burn off all that food I had eaten. It was difficult to stick with a 6 to 8 hour window because the amount of food was far more than I was used to. And I felt like I was always either eating, cooking, or cleaning. After week 1, I had to eat 3 meals and 3 snacks. So that meant I was fitting 6 different eating requirements into my eating window. It was also difficult for me to drink water more away from my meals, because that's how I normally do. I normally don't do but 20 to 30 minutes before a meal to provide the water that's needed. And then I wait at least an hour after the meal because I was taught too much liquid right at and during the meals could dilute my digestive juices. I was trying to stick to the intermittent fasting time frame meant sometimes I would get to the end of my eating window and realize, oh my gosh, I need to eat 4 cups of veggies minimum. And one of their special inspirational restaurant-inspired dinners had an especially bigger amount of volume. So I would mix that right in with all these 4 cups of veggies, and the inspirations actually count as one of the veggies. So I could just do 3 separate veggies. So the program, in my opinion, was not a great fit for intermittent fasting, but doing it with an 8 to 10 hour eating window may be much easier than doing a 6 to 8 hour eating window. There were definitely some disappointments. Quite a few of the sweet snacks, cookies, and bars, they have genetically modified ingredients, and it's always marked on the package. However, they never show up online which ones they are. Like, I think the chocolate peanut butter bar, if you go on the ingredients online, you will not see the statement that they have listed on the package, so you could end up buying GMO without realizing it until you get it. Could you do the plan if you knew which ones they were and not have to eat any of the GMO? Yes. Some of the foods also use soy protein, which I normally avoid as a regular form of protein. It's controversial. And other ingredients were not pure, of course, when you're using packaged foods, but they have come a long way in the last 30 years, and they do use sweeteners like stevia, monk fruit, never aspartame. They also use erythritol. So when you're dealing with pre-packaged frozen and non-frozen foods, that is not normally my style of what I would choose to do. I'd rather have real whole foods and organic ones at that, so they don't have the chemicals and pesticides. Also, here's a big shocker. The amount of carbs, and I mean net carbs where you subtract the fiber, could be in a given day, if you chose a certain food for their breakfast, it could be 26 grams of net carbs. Their lunch, 29 grams. Their dinner, those inspirational dinners, 44 grams. Their snack, 24 grams. And you also have to eat a smart carb, they call it. So you could have a whole cup of blueberries each day, which would be 21 grams. And if you use 3 of those extras per day as popcorn, that's another 15 grams of carbs. What's the grand total for what I've just called out to you? 183 plus grams of net carbs in one day. I was absolutely shocked because guess what? Doing exactly as they instructed for 4 weeks, because it was a test, eating all that much food, and I was stuffed like all the time. I lost 1.15 pound per week which is precisely their prediction of 1 to 2 pounds a week, saying losing it at this rate will keep the weight off better long term. Well, since the clinical study had said 3 pounds per week, which was probably men, and the TV commercial said 5 pounds the first week, which the coach said was typical for men but not women, I was disappointed but still very impressed that this much food and this many carbs didn't make me gain a substantial amount of weight in the 4 weeks. Just thought this would be a great topic since some of you see the commercials and are wondering about it and how it might fit. Look forward to you referring our podcast to others. Check out our website, jpwowprograms.com, and if you have questions or feedback, email me, julie@jpwowprograms.com. Stay positive, focused, and determined, because where the mind goes, energy flows.